Well, howdy, everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name's Joseph Gant, and I ride for the 777 Ranch right now, and I've just got back from us taking 2,500 head of cattle, or cows. We just like to call them cows, whether they're bulls or steers or cows, we just call them cows, on up the Chisholm Trail, right here through central Texas, through the middle Indian Territory, and on up to Wichita this year. Well, like I said, we just got back because we always want to time it just right for us getting there. We usually leave in and around when the grass starts turning green down around San Antonio, Bexar County, that's where I'm from, and we take him on up. Now, just to give you a little bit of idea about what's going on here, well, as you can see, I'm a drover. Yeah, now some of you might want to call me a cowboy, but we actually refer to ourselves as drovers. They keep us separate from the others on the trail. Why, we always have, a cookie, if you will. We call him the biscuit cheater, if you will. Usually we got two wranglers. Now, they're always in charge of the horses, taking care of the remuda there to get us horses to ride. Like most of them, I may own my own saddle, but I don't own my own horse. Don't need to own a horse. Him's almost as much trouble as a woman, in my opinion. Now, the other thing that we have is, you got the trail boss, and then there's about 10 of us drovers. Now, being a drover, it's all right, depending on where you're stuck. If you're riding lead or point, or if you're riding swing, that's fine. But if you end up having to ride drag, and that means that you're at the back of that herd of 2,500 cows, well, it's not as fun as it is for the rest of us. Now, many a time our greenhorns are the ones who end up, the new cowboys or the new drovers are the ones who end up riding back here. And over time, you work your way on up front. Now, I can tell you this particular trail is a lot better than that old Shawnee Trail, because you don't have to cross as deep and deeper rivers as you would. Them old rivers along the Shawnee Trail, like several of them boys, they can't even swim. I remember back in '66, we lost a few of them going across some of those, especially the Arkansas up there in Indian Territory as we went. But here, most of them's only a couple of feet deep if you find the right crossing point, whether it's at the Brazos or the Red or the Canadian, or the Cimarron going on up through. Why, as long as you get to the right point, you'll be fine going down through there, because it's hard for a fella to drown in about 4 inches of water in many cases. Now, of course, to tell you a little bit about myself, now, like I said, my name's Joseph Gant, and since I'm a drover, I make $30 a month. Now, that's a lot of good wages right there. Most folks at this particular time is only going to make $12 to $15 a month. And I'm also a little bit spoiled because I'm one of the permanent drovers. That's right. When I finish up, I go back there on the 777 Ranch. I got me a bunkhouse to stay in. Now, we do chores around there during the cold weather season, when it gets down into the 50s down there around Bexar County, and take care of things like, riding fence or putting up stalls or maybe broken a few horses, or that type of thing. Well, some of the others, once we get on up there to Kansas, they go ahead and cut them loose, give them a pay. That's another story all in itself. You give a whole bunch of fellers pay when they've been out in the field or out on the trail for about 6 months. Well, they're planning on having a good old time. I guarantee you that. But, I always come back and start back up. Now, with the way that they're building these railroads into Texas, I ain't sure how much longer I'm going to be able to do this. Now, I'm already fairly long in the tooth, but like I said, I started back in '66, almost 14 years ago, and now that these rails is coming through, why, you ain't got as near as far to take them as they go through there. Old Fort Worth, it's developing this whole tarantula system, and they're planning on creating a stockyard right there to haul the cattle out of. So we'll see how much longer, how many more years, I reckon, we'll be taking these cows on up to Chisholm. like I said, I started back in '66 doing it, and there's all kinds of things. Now, never been one much for horses. I'll leave that to the Rangers. And every year, of course, we do take a little Mary with us. This particular year, he's a young orphan boy that is about 12 years old, and his job is to help out with the biscuit cheater, the bean shooter, the cook. And what he does is he'll go out and if there's any timber around, of course, he'll gather up the wood for the fire, gather up the water. If we're up in the Indian nations there, he'll go through and gather up the old dried cow chips out there, because you can burn them just as well and get you a good fire going.
So why exactly did you change from the Shawnee Trail to the Chisholm Trail?
Why did we change from the Shawnee to the Chisholm? Well, there's several reasons, but the main one is they was building them railroads across Kansas, you see, as it went. And most of them folks up there don't necessarily care for a whole bunch of drovers and cowpokes and all the others that it brings in, the gamblers, the soil doves, and all of that coming into these cow towns. Because we're not the only ones taking these herds up to Chisholm. Why, just last year, I think they said there was 400,000 cows delivered to Abilene, Kansas there. Yep, that's right, 400,000. Now, everybody tries to arrive about the same time, around July 4th, before it starts getting too hot, and it stops raining, so the grass stops growing. So everybody's trying to find their place, and that trail is really wide. Now, because of going on up through there, and them folks in Kansas not necessarily liking the, I guess you could say the unresponsible folk that would come into their town during the spring and the summertime, well, they banned several of them and the railheads, so they just had to keep building it further and further west. So originally we'd go up to Shawnee and we'd head off to Wichita, or go all the way into Missouri, or Misery if you're familiar with that particular state. Then it was going into Wichita, and now we're heading all the way on out further west to Abilene is where we're going now with these particular calves.
And did you encounter any problems along the Chisholm Trail?
Well, way back we used to encounter Indian problems, especially with the 5 tribes over in the east along the Shawnee Trail. Now there you got to be careful of rustlers and bad eggs and that type of thing that was out there. On the Chisholm though, since it's flat and it's spread out, you can kind of see them coming. Now that's one of the reasons that I got my gun belt on, but I don't carry a pistol with me. It's locked up in the chuck wagon here. Cookie makes sure that it takes care of it, because you don't want to spook no cows. You spook a cow, they start a stampede and going. And that's probably one of the biggest dangers on the entire trail is a stampede. Because them cows they don't know where they're going, and if you ain't on your horse, you're liable to get runned over. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, several of the fellers had to worry about not being able to swim over on the Shawnee, and don't have to worry about that now. The other thing that you have to worry about, especially when you get into the Indian nations, is them thunderstorms that's come up. The lightning or even some twisters that may pop up, because if you think about it, there ain't no trees out there. You had a dog, he'd go crazy running around in circles for 3 months when he went from Texas to Kansas, because there ain't no trees. So if you're sitting on your horse, you're the tallest thing out there. And if you feel your hat starting to stand up and your hair going up on edge, why, you better get down as fast as you can. Well, I've seen hailstones, the size of them there grapefruit and everything falling out of the sky before, and they can put quite a damper on your constitution, if you will, and quite an egg on top of your head. So that's some of the dangers that we might encounter out there.
What are some uses for your bandana?
Well, the main thing is just like that, and it's to keep all the dust and the dirt and everything else from getting in your mouth and up your nose and everything else. It really comes in handy if you're riding drag, The feller we have riding drag, we call him Booger. Because he gets all that dust and everything up in there in his nose, and he'll go to sneeze and it'll just stick to the wall by the time he's finished. So you don't want to be around Booger after he's been on the trail for a while. Now, but the bandana would also come in handy because you can always wet it down. You come across water and it'll go around your neck there and help to keep it off. Why, it'll help to keep the sun off of your neck sometimes. Along with your hat, you can turn it around that way. So there's all kinds of uses. If you're helping the cook, as far as getting one of them there pans off of the fire, why, you might want to grab your bandana and wrap it around your hand before you grab hold of it, keep from getting the blisters and everything else on it. So just like everything else, it's a tool that we have. Whether it's the particular gloves, whether it's the quirt that I wear right there, whether it's my gaiters or what have you, it's going to serve a purpose. If it ain't got a purpose, you don't need to take it with you.
Great, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, and I hope to see a lot more of you. Maybe more of you in person a little later on down the trail. I figure I'll probably pass back through here in about another year. So until then, we'll say vaya con Dios, like they say down there in the South. Why, that's what a lot of our particular growers say, believe it or not. One thing that comes back to mind real quick is that most folks don't realize that because of all the money that's at stake, it don't matter where you're from or what particular color your skin is, they're going to hire you for a job. So the drovers that we have, they may be Indian, they may be freedmen or former slaves, they may be Southerners, they may be Yankees. It don't really matter. If you can ride and do your job, that's all that's important to the ranch owners. So, like I said, vaya con Dios, and we'll see you down the trail.
We've learned so much about life as a cowboy here in Texas. Cowboys would see so many beautiful parts of our great state and others along the trail, including trees and cactus and local wildlife. So using supplies that you have, make your own Texas sunset. Be sure to include the things that cowboys would have seen along the Chisholm Trail. See you again soon.